Today in the Home Winemaking channel, we're going to look at some super cool old corkscrews and wine bottle openers. Over the years, I've kind of gathered up a bunch of old, odd corkscrews. These aren't necessarily the ones I reach for when I open a bottle of wine, and I would say they almost never really are, but they are kind of a cool talking point and just an interesting thing to have in your wine cellar, or if you have a little bar at your house. What better way to decorate than with some corkscrews from the 1800s. I'll just kind of go through some of these today and kind of point out some of my most interesting or most favorite. And a lot of these you can pick up for, $15, $20. And even the most expensive ones are usually going to be under $100. So if it's way cool, still maybe worth it to you. I'll start with this little flip out corkscrew. These were really popular in the 1800s and probably into the early 1900s. These are really cool. These can fit in your pocket. They have a really satisfying kind of flip out mechanism, and they're built really well. These are like high quality spring steel. This is machined. It's just not like your throwaway corkscrew. This is probably pretty high quality little thing that you'd carry around if you're a pretty serious wine drinker. And it's probably one of my favorite little old corkscrews. And these ones are not that cheap anymore. You probably are going to spend $35, $40 to get one of these little corkscrews. By far, probably the most popular style of corkscrew would be these T-handle corkscrews. I have a whole handful of different ones here, and there's various, higher quality, lower quality. This one has a deer antler as the handle. I'm not sure if that one was homemade or what the deal is with that one. It kind of leans maybe that way. Where this one here is pretty ornate. It's got some nice little grooves in the wood. It's even got some cool little ridges in the steel screw. A lot of these used to come with a brush on the end. A lot of them, though, you'll find the brush has long since fallen off, and that was used to, a lot of these old bottles will be waxed. So you kind of pick the wax off the top and it's kind of gross and dusty. So you use a brush to brush off the wax. These were popular definitely through the 1800s. With these modern corks, they're pretty tight. Any of these T-handle style corkscrews, I just don't think I'm just never reaching for those to open a bottle of wine. In general, you'll see the cheaper corkscrews, they have like a twisted wire of a consistent thickness, where kind of the better build quality, it'll either be machined out of one piece of steel, or it'll still kind of look twisted, but you'll see like a progressive change in thickness as it goes down. So it's not just simply a piece of wire that's been twisted and then hardened so it doesn't deform. This is like very common. If you search antique corkscrews, is the boy holding the corkscrew. I don't know why that's the case. Apparently 100 years ago that was like super hilarious to people, so you won't have any trouble finding one of those corkscrews, and usually they're not very expensive if you do find them. Now I also have some kind of like throwaway corkscrews, or maybe you say freebie corkscrews. So if you go to a bar, maybe they give you a little bottle opener corkscrew. Here's a really tiny one. It has a liquor store name on it. I would say this is probably from the 1970s, maybe 1960s. But here's another version of kind of a giveaway, I think, corkscrew. And these usually come in like a cardboard tube. I think this is probably from the mid to late 1800s, or maybe as late as like the 1920-ish. This is just a twisted wire style corkscrew. Stick your finger in it, yank out the cork. So like, I'm never going to use this corkscrew. It's about the last way I want to pull a cork out of a bottle, but it's kind of a cool little piece of history. And if you want to hang them around your bar or whatever, something to talk about. This corkscrew I just picked up, and this is really, really cool. This is one of the first kind of lever action style corkscrews, so it could be kind of a predecessor to like your rabbit style corkscrews today. This is like really, really cool though. It's got almost hand stamped in it. It says Lund. It has an address in London. And I actually used this to open a bottle just to see how it worked shortly before I made this video. And I gotta say, it was more of a joy to use than I expected. This screw on this, or we can call it a worm, is tapered to really, really thin at the tip. So it just goes right in the cork with no effort whatsoever. I had a little trouble kind of like, you kind of have to push it forwards to slide the hook into the hole on the screw part. If you've never done it before like me, it was a little clumsy, I would say, but I think if you worked at a bar 100 years ago or so and this was your corkscrew, you'd probably be popping these things out no problem whatsoever. And it really makes it somewhat effortless, even with a pretty aggressive cork. The bottle that I opened used colmated corks, which those things they're in there pretty tight. So much so I was kind of scared I was gonna snap this off or something, but after using it, I'm not really worried about that at all. I will say there are some counterfeits of these Lund corkscrews out there, so probably don't buy, like, if it looks sketchy, don't buy it. I found a website out there that kind of goes through these things and what to look for in a reproduction. Like if it's not very clear, like it's almost intentionally aged to the point where you can't actually read the company anymore, it's probably a fake that's more made for like decorative purposes. So watch out for that. I think I paid $75 for that, and I had to have this shipped over from Europe. So it's especially a cool item if you live in the United States, because it's probably much more common or much more popular if you live in Europe. So I always like to have things other people don't have. These are maybe worth having just to kind of show the spread of cork pulling history. This is your kind of two-bladed cork pull. These are used if you have a stubborn cork that might disintegrate when it comes out. You kind of slide these in beside the cork. You can kind of twist and pull it out. Again, I never use this thing. Some sommeliers, where they're opening really, really old bottles where there are very crumbly corks, they'll use a version of this that actually has a screw in the middle as well. So it just makes sure that that cork comes out without disintegrating, which is kind of the last thing you want to do on like a $500 bottle of wine. Here's just an older waiter's corkscrew. This is just a single lever kind of style versus most of the modern ones have kind of a two-step design. I love waiter's corkscrews. It's what I open every bottle of wine with for the most part. But I always use the two-step style design, and I always make sure that the edges of the two-step are kind of folded over so you don't ever like chip the glass on the bottle like you can with some of these straight-edged versions. So like True Tap, I really love those, and another brand called Coutal, I think is how you say it. I think it's I don't know if it's made in Italy or not, but they're a little bit one step up from a True Tap. Really, really nice little waiter's corkscrews, and way like better performing than these kind of showpiece style ones like the Lagoyle, the $300 corkscrews. I'd take one of those $20 corkscrews any day. This is a common style of corkscrew back in the day. Some people still use these. You basically screw it in like this, and then you flip this little thing, and then you turn the little T-bar here and pull out the cork. Personally, I wouldn't use these to open bottles of wine. It's kind of a lot of steps to do something that you can do much quicker with like a waiter's corkscrew, or like these rabbit things are insanely fast, but I still have some complaints about those. And here's an interesting one. I just realized that they actually still make these things. This is called a Corky. It's made in Switzerland, and it's basically a little air pump with a very sharp needle on it. So you basically just puncture the cork with a needle, pump it up, pushes the cork out. I don't use this ever. I have used it just to try it out. I am a little bit apprehensive to use air pressure to push out a cork, especially if the cork is a stubborn one and the bottle's not the greatest glass. I'm always afraid I'm going to break the bottle in the process of trying to get the cork out. So their selling point is you don't have to worry about crumbling up your cork or anything when you take the cork out, but I don't think that's a strong enough selling point for me to feel super comfortable using that one. That about covers my cool old antique corkscrews. I'm probably going to keep my eyes open over the years and pick up a few more here and there if I can. If you guys have any way cool corkscrews, I'd love to hear about them because I'm always trying to up my decoration game at the little bar here. I'd like to take a minute too to give a shout out. A lot of you guys know I have a Patreon page, patreon.com/makewine, where you can see more content on winemaking. But some of my top patrons, the shout out level patrons, I'd like to give a shout out to Amanda Hennessy, Mark Copeland, Steve Matchall, and Fawaz Aldasari. Thanks so much for all your support, and it's really helpful just in all this video equipment, lighting equipment, microphones and recorders. Like it gets expensive over time trying to put these videos together. As always, thanks for watching.